In industry, there are different levels of jobs. Firstly, there are the team. These are the people who work on the projects that they're given. For example, if the company did 3D modeling, these people would be making the models. Then there is a team leader. If this is in charge of the team, giving them projects and actually working with the team, helping and guiding them. The person who is in charge of the team leader is the management. They could be in charge of several teams. They would tell the team leaders what to do and reward and punish the team members. Also, the management is a middleman between the team leaders and the producers. A producer is the main company that pays for several different companies to do different parts of making the game. 3D modeler. 3D modeler makes 3D models of what the artists have drawn. They would do this to give a more detailed image of what something would look like. This could be a character on a game, buildings, and terrain. The people working on the team would have to work with 3D software and have an understanding of the gaming industry. They would need to know this because they would need to know what kind of characters and building the different games are like. So they would make the 3D models look right and genre correct. This means that the buildings and terrain and characters look correct for a specific game, for example anime or first-person shooter. There will be a big team of 3D modelers working on different parts of the game. Within the team, there will be several smaller teams, for example, one team working on the selection of terrain, one team working on the selection of legs of a character. The team would have many different characters and variations of characters. The modeler would start out with a drawing of something that different artists have drawn from what the game designers have come out with. Also, they would work with level designers making the terrain. Throughout models, they would make more detail for it, for example adding facial expressions or adding clothes and weapons. Finally, when all of the details and different variations have been made, you will have a 3D representation of the character, building, or terrain would look like. This can be used within an animator to show how a character would move, kill, or would die. This is very useful to give representation of what the game would look like. The animators will bring the game to life, so the audience have an idea what the game will look like when they buy the game. Furthermore, it will show to the producers what the game will look like.
Job 2. Animator. This team uses 3D models to create 3D moving images of the characters. They would have to use various software and computers. So to be able to do this job, you would have to know how to use the software and the computers. With the 3D models, they would make the characters move in several different ways to see which suits the character the most. They would do this so the characters seem as natural as possible. They will make it move by making several frames, moving the model a little bit, and then compiling it so it looks like it's moving. They would need to look at many different scenarios and put the character in them. The scenarios will be relevant to the game. They would do this because it would give a correct representation how a character would look in the game. Animator is important because it would look more real to the game and give a more accurate feel to what it would look like. Animators would work closely with the artists and programmers to make sure that the game runs smoothly and correctly. They would not just work on one single character, they work on entire worlds, splitting up the jobs into several teams but coming up together to create one big concept. Animators would work on different characters, objects and terrains. Everything within the game the animator would work on. They try to make sure everything looks and plays as good as it could possibly be. Once all of the animators are finished, it would be handed over to the programmer. The programmer is the team that actually makes the gameplay. They make the finished product that the audience buys. Artist. There isn't just one type of artist. There are many types of artists dealing with the different parts of the game. The artists are environmentalist, characterist, polygonalist, texturist, visualist. The reason there is lots of different artists is because the games are massive and there are lots of different parts to it which need professional knowledge on different parts of the game. For each job the artists will have to know different types of games, different style of games. Furthermore, they would have to have an understanding of the gaming industry. Environmentalist. These people must like to draw large landscapes. They can often make stories about the landscapes, or when they are finished, make one of them. This can help to understand why they have chosen to draw this landscape. These are fast at drawing with just one piece or many pieces. Artists have brilliant perspective of depth, scale and perspective. They can be used on 3D games and 2D games. However, on 2D games they can be used directly. Their artwork doesn't need to be made into a 3D model. Characterist. These people do exactly what the name suggests. They create characters for the games. These people mainly focus on detail and can take a long time creating something that is perfect. They create a basic model of a character they want to make and make different variations of that character to do what the character can do. The reason why they take so long is because they are making the main part of the game. Not all characters are chosen, but if they do, they can take a long time for the final concept to be made. Polygonalist. These are people who design things in 3D. Different artists like using different applications. Some like Autodesk, Maya, others like Blender, and some like Modo. You can download models and put them into the game, but they don't give you originality and something that is unique to the game. The step after that will be use 3D model, which gives more a body feel to it. Texturist. When a 3D model is finished, it needs skin, and this is called texture. Artists have to unwrap the model. This basically means turning it into 2D. Once this is done, they will start to add detail, and they will keep in mind the boundaries, blends and folds. Visualist. These need to design and create from a user's perspective. They would need to know about how the user interacts with games. They need to know about colours and what colours mean to the users. These people don't have much freedom, but have to follow rules. Their job is important because they're responsible for everything the user will see, and if something goes wrong and the user won't like it and will not buy the game. Audio engineer. It is this person's job to add sound and effects to all of the game. This is a very small team, normally consisting of 2 or 3 people. These people are not full-time and only hired on a temporary basis. This team will get the game when it is finished and will have to add sound and effects to all of the game. This job will be long and tedious. This is because they would have to go through all of the game and add sound effects in all of the game. This would have to be perfect because the users would not be happy with poor sound effects. It is also these people's job to add music to the game. They would add music at the starting menu at different parts in the game. They could do this to add tension or atmosphere to the game. For example, if an important character was they would play sad music, but if something such as a chase was happening, they would add dramatic music. Music is very important to the game because it is the only thing that the users hear when the characters are not talking. Designer. This is the first step in making the game. These are the people that actually come up with the game. They have to design the game from scratch. It will be a long process which will include putting loads of ideas together and picking developing certain ones, depending on the criteria they have given. These people have a massive range of what they can do. They will be given a little information such as genre, audience and style of game. But apart from that, they can design what they want. These people would have to come up with everything from characters to the actual story behind the game. They are like the foundations to the entire game. Their job would take a long time if they have to write everything that would be included within the game. Once they have designed the game, they give their ideas to artists, which will put the characters, terrains, and buildings to life. The designers would have to work with artists that can give their input as they are drawing their ideas. Scriptwriter. This is again very simple to work out what the team does. They write scripts for the games. However, their job isn't as simple as it sounds. It is a very complicated and hard job. These people have to think of everything a character would say. They would have to adapt how they would write for every character because every character is different from one another. The team would split up into different groups, each focusing on different characters. Each team would have to put their ideas forward on how the character would talk and act. They would work with the game designers because the game designers will be doing the storyboards, and then the scriptwriters have to develop what the character would say and how they would say it. Furthermore, they would have to work with actors doing the voices for the characters so they can suit the talking style to the voice. Furthermore, it would also be the job of the scriptwriter to have some say in the storyboard. They would need this so they could add certain parts that are important to the storyline. They would need to amend and change parts of the storyline so it would fit better with the script, or change it so it gives a more dramatic effect to the game and would have a better experience and playing ability. Level designer. A level designer is somebody who designs levels for the game. Their team will be very large because on most games there is lots of different levels. Their job will be very hard because they would have to design every level for one another. For example, on Grand Theft Auto 5 there was 69 missions. That would mean each team would have to plan each mission in detail, and some of the missions would be very long, so it would be hard to design them. The team would have to think of several ideas for the levels, as many won't be used, because they will only choose the best ones and develop them further to enhance the playing ability. It will be a very long and detailed job. Every part of it will have to be perfect and detailed with absolutely no mistakes. The missions would have to get harder as you pass through the previous one, because the player would want something more challenging as you go further into the game. Different companies will specialise in different games. This will be because, depending on the game, levels will be massively different. For example, levels on Mario, which is a 2D side-scroller, has lots of different levels compared to them on GTA. Furthermore, levels would want to give a story for the audience to relate to or feel close to the storyline. This is because they would want the audience to carry on playing and be interested in the localization tester. This team would get the game once it has finished. Their job is to play a section of the game to find any bugs, errors and problems within the game. They would have to learn how to play a variety of games on different platforms very quickly and be able to master lots of games. They would need this because they can't waste time learning the controls and how to play the game. You would have to have a good knowledge of the game industry so you know all the different types of games. This would help because then you would know a lot of the games that are already out, and most of the games follow the same pattern with controls. A localization tester also has to be able to speak and write in another language. This is because they need to translate the English into their home country language. This is important because the game can be sold in many countries and therefore making more money. They would have to go to the part of the game that they have been given and must translate it. Furthermore, they have to correct any spelling, punctuation and timing is all correct. This will make the game more detailed and better for the user. They also would need to, so the user would want to buy the game. Finally, once they have tested their bit of the game, they would have to report and retranslate to the game any bugs or errors within found. Finally, once they have tested their bit of the game, they would have to report any retranslation to the game, bugs or errors found within the game. They have to work closely with the team to share their problems so they can get fixed, therefore making the game better. Producer. These are the main people within the game. They are the main company behind the game. They will hire companies to do the work. They are the money behind the gaming. The producers will work with the management to make sure all the teams are working the best they can, so the game can be released as soon as possible. They will come up with a strategy to make this happen so that everything is set up so that once the team has finished, another team will start. They will oversee everything that happens during the production of the game. They will get all information off of management because it will be very difficult for the producer to go to all of the teams because there are so many different teams. They would need to know what is
really,
happening.
you should just know that as a
within
producer,
the teams
it's your job to make sure that the rest of the team knows
at
what
all
they're
times.
doing, is
They will
delivering what they're
maintain
supposed to be
timings
delivering,
of all the
and
jobs
doesn't have
so
anything in their way to prevent them.
so that they will be done on time. They will tell management to give rewards or punishment if the team does well or bad. Furthermore, they can make sure that there's clear communication between all management and the teams and the team leaders. This will mean the game will be clear to all of the teams working on the game. Programmer. These are the people who control the movement of the playing and non-playing characters. They bring the game from basic animation to more real and detailed movement. Everything that moves in a video game is because the programmer wrote the code which makes it move. The programmers are important because without them nothing will be able to move within the game. The programming job is very hard because they have to write a lot of code. Code is the matter which commands characters to move or do something. The coding can be very long and complex. The bigger the movement, the longer the code. Coders are paid quite a lot of money because it is a hard subject to learn and requires lots of skill. It is so important because you don't have a lot of freedom. It isn't popular because you don't have a lot of freedom. You just have to follow the instructions wrote by the designers. It can be very long and boring, just typing lines and lines of code. Making a mistake while coding can be very bad because it can cause the game to break. Programmers make up a lot of the game. They control the non-playing characters do. This could be a pedestrian or enemy. Furthermore, in a game it can be important what they do because more people like it when the non-players playing characters are more interactive and react when you do something with them. Quality assurance testers. These are the people who are testing the game. They won't get the full game but a section from the game. This is seen to be not as fun as it sounds. The reason for this is because you have to play a small section of the game for a long time, and long hours. You can't even play the game properly. You have to do exactly what the team leaders say. The main reason that people don't find it interesting is because all you have to do is shoot everything and walk into everything. Basically test everything within the section of the game that you have. Idea of this is test everything just in case the game crashes if you do something like this during a game. You would have to do this for months just testing and nothing else. Furthermore, pay isn't that good either. Once that you have played the game, you would submit the data you have collected and report back to the company with any bugs or errors. This is so the game is released, there is nothing wrong with the game and it runs smoothly.